My Trinity, Part 1. As a boy, I had faith in three things: Jesus Christ, social activism, and my very big brain. Back then, I attended church on Sundays and Wednesdays. Sunday was for Sunday school and the worship service. Wednesday night was for Christian Youth Crusaders, or CYC. Think Boy Scouts with a salvation twist. We earned our badges by reciting Bible verses. I took the crusade concept more seriously than most. In 4th grade, I read the entire Bible so that I could better spread the word. Mom, Marcus, you should go out and play. You'll have to work for the rest of your life. Me, I'm too busy thinking about my Jesus. Ain't got time for nothing else. This to the tune of Marvin Gaye's song, Too Busy Thinking About My Baby. The vocabulary sentences I wrote that year were always religious. Take the words conclude or practice. I'd write, to conclude, there is nothing I would not do to honor the sacrifice of Jesus. And as I began to practice basketball today, I considered how best to serve as a witness for Christ. Eventually, my teacher informed my mother about this unusual religious zeal. After that, I found myself on the phone with our church minister. Good Reverend actually sought to convince me to be less religious. Marcus, if you read the Bible just 1 hour a day, that would be more than 95% of the congregation. Yes, sir. But inside I wondered how I could possibly attend a church with such lightweight believers. During 6th grade, I wrestled with how to witness to my fellow classmates that Jesus had died for their sins. But I never actually did it. I figured my chance would come when I became a minister myself someday. That seemed like the only possible outcome for a fine young Christian like me. But before that happened, 8th grade rolled around, and I had an enormous crush on Nora Turner. Nora was Marion the librarian in our school production Music Man, and I was the hapless Mayor Chen. Although she was the love interest of Harold Hill on stage, off stage, I wanted her to be mine. I abandoned heavenly pursuits for a while, focusing on Nora's more immediate charms. Nothing ever happened with her, but eventually I made it to 3rd base for Teresa Biamonte. I wasn't worried about witnessing anymore, preferring instead to ponder the lovely features of the many attractive girls in my midst. Jesus stared down dejectedly. Not all was lost to puberty. In the midst of this horny surge, I became very saddened by the plight of the homeless. One summer, I watched appalling national news stories about people who dumped pails of water on homeless people from several stories high in apartment buildings just to get them to scurry away. These stories tapped into my Christian sense of activism. After all, Jesus was a badass activist. He overturned the tables of money changers and chastised those who flaunted their wealth. Not armed with Christ's confidence to attack oppressors directly, I wrote about homelessness instead. The big brain got to work. I checked out William Julius Wilson's tome, The Truly Disadvantaged, for the library and brought it along on a family vacation in Myrtle Beach. We were very far from homeless. I also read an ethnography of life in a homeless shelter. This research became fodder for a story called The Soup Kitchen, which was published as a slim volume when I was in high school. I sought to humanize homeless people and overturn common stereotypes. And one of my characters had an uncanny grasp of the sociological theories of William Julius Wilson. After writing the story, I became embarrassed by this ivory tower approach. What kind of social reformer reads about poverty to the sound of the lapping waves of the Atlantic Ocean? Eventually, I began volunteering at the Faith Mission downtown. Although I fancied myself a scholar, a salesman I was not. I couldn't get any of my fellow volunteers to shell out $5.95 for their own autographed copy of The Soup Kitchen. Me, over the din of surging water and clanking dishes. Guys, I wrote this story about homelessness called The Soup Kitchen. I have lots of copies. I can sign them for you. Colleague, how much is it? Me, $5.95. Colleague, that's steep, my brother. Me, true. Even though I had trouble moving the product, this experience was the perfect fusion of my Christian impulses, activist spirit, and brainiac ways. Life was never that simple again. So that's the first part. So that was childhood. My views have shifted since then. But the second piece is, the whole essay is called Mom, Mr. Celery, and Me. And the first part of that essay, the first section of that essay is called Chakras versus Calculus. So, A lot of sit up there. Okay. My mother believes in ionic detoxification. I do not. In an ionic detox, a person takes a foot bath in warm water sprinkled with salt. 2 electrodes swirl the water. Over the course of 30 minutes, the water discolors, becoming reddish-brown and sometimes black. Ostensibly, the discoloration proves that various toxins have left the body. Black water, for example, means the toxins have left the liver. The alternate explanation is much less emotionally satisfying, that electrolysis discolors the water in an easily explained act of chemistry. An ion is a molecule that can have a positive or negative charge and causes discoloration of the electrodes. After all, Barbie dolls placed into foot baths have been able to discolor balloons. Toxins, schmoxins. During the 2011 holidays, I was home with my family. My Uncle Ed, also a visitor that week, enjoyed 2 foot baths. After a day out, my wife and I returned as the first bath was in progress. We heard Mom's enthusiastic proclamations about the benefits of the bath. I ignored all of this, having long harbored doubts about Mom's belief system. My wife took a more scholarly approach, furtively looking up citations about Ionic Detox in our bedroom. That night, we both concluded that Ionic Detox is a sham, but we resolved not to make any fuss about it. We were guests, after all, and everyone is entitled to their own beliefs. The next evening, the cycle began anew. Ed requested another foot bath. I resolved to ignore the entire process, thankful for the distracting football game between Washington and Baylor visible on the 65-inch flat-screen TV. Go Baylor! Go Washington! Just leave me out of this foot bath mess. At this point, Ed's feet had yet to touch water. Mom requested, Marcus, come see this water. It's so clear. Like the dutiful son I am, I arose from the couch to view the water, giving it exactly 1 second of attention. Soon I was back on the couch, just as Baylor scored to put that game out of reach. Meanwhile, Mom kept extolling the benefits of the foot bath. I had to say something, but I am the world's worst actor. So I said something like, we were looking this up last night, and we think it's crap. Suddenly, tension was in the air. Belief systems were clashing. The icy rationalism of the Enlightenment pitted against the mystical beliefs of the ancients. Chakras versus calculus. Reluctantly, I detailed our previous evening's scholarship. Eventually, I retrieved the iPad from the bedroom and pulled up the website that had most stoked our doubts. From there, it was a short hop to YouTube, which contains a video of a carrot getting a foot bath and also producing brown water. After that, there was nothing for it but to search for a carrot to receive similar abuse. We wanted to compare the water discoloration caused by the carrot to Uncle Ed's brackish brew. Alas, no carrot was in the crisper, so we settled for a piece of celery. While receiving his foot bath, Ed set forth the details of our experiment. Our goal was to have as controlled an environment as possible. Mom scrubbed the ionizer clean after Ed's bath, and then we put Mr. Celery into a fresh batch of water. The celery caused some slight discoloration, but I had to admit that it was nothing like Ed's. Did this mean toxins had indeed escaped from Ed's body? Was his liver much improved? My wife and I held fast that this was not the case. It was just the celery was a poor conductor. As I sat morosely, Mom asked, is there anything you're not skeptical about? I pretended not to understand her question, and then mumbled a non-response. For more baldly than usual, the gulf between us was clear. I wished things were different, but I knew they would not be. So then, last is a short poem called On the Difference Between Your First and Second Marriage. My wife is not here to hear this, but I did send it to her, of course. Second. Good point. Okay. When you're married the first time, you think that love means you can throw any number of obstacles in the way and the bond will somehow survive. When you're married the second time, you know that love means you should avoid as many troubles as you can in the first place. The first time around, The problem is hubris. Didn't think it would be so emotional. Second time around, the solution is humility. First time around, the problem is hubris. Second time around, the solution is humility. The first had its time, place, and reasons, but the second will endure. Thank you.